Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Today's guest is Joselyne Walter, the founder of the Digg Agency, a marketing agency that helps organizations execute high-scale projects. Joselyne specializes in streaming projects using tools such as AI. We're excited to really dig into some of these tools in this episode. Joselyne, welcome to the show.
Hello, Sanjay. Thank you. Appreciate that warm welcome.
So it's great having you on. I think AI is something that I feel like everybody talks about all the time, but a lot of times you don't really talk about the implications on actually getting things done. But before we get into that, give us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are today.
Certainly. So I am first generation born here in the States. Was actually born and raised in Miami, Florida. And oddly enough, have been in Florida all my life. My parents, I think it's interesting for people that don't know all my background, but my parents came here from Honduras. And my mom actually only had a 5th grade education when she moved here to the States. And my dad had what was the equivalent of a high school diploma. So they were both blue collar workers. My dad was a welder, welding garbage trucks, and my mom was a housekeeper for many years. And yet they raised and instilled such a good foundation. I was the first one to graduate from college out of 40 cousins. Worked in corporate America. I mean, at one point, I worked for a company that had a $17 million marketing budget. And what I found that when I was working for a $17 million marketing budget company or one that had $0, the gap was the same in terms of resources. And I thought, you know what? I can fill this gap and I'm going to go start my own thing. And that's where the Digg Agency was born from.
Awesome. So is Digg the first time you've done anything entrepreneurial, or was there something like when you were a kid, like hustling on things, like anything there?
So I think I've always been a hustler, but entrepreneur-wise, yes, the Digg is my first gig from an entrepreneur standpoint. And for a while, I always said that I was afraid of entrepreneurship, the lack of stability, the lack of direction, having too many things to do at once. I always thought I would hate it, but it's my first go at it. And I absolutely love it. I am hooked.
Yeah. It's funny because we hear that so often about entrepreneurship, right? Like the lack of stability. But, you know, I think in anything that you do, there's a lack of stability if you really peer below the covers, right? Like you're working for somebody, you can get fired at any time. You can get laid off at any time. You never know. So I often say in entrepreneurship, like you're the only one that can fire you. So in terms of that, it's a little bit safer.
Yeah, for sure. And when I worked in corporate America, unfortunately, every single year for the better of 10, 15 years, we would talk about layoffs. Right. And what's odd is I'd have to talk about laying off, Susie over Bobby and why Susie was better and Bobby was worse, or Bobby was better and Susie was worse. And then you go have meetings with Bobby and Susie and you're pretending that life is good, that they'll be here forever, they're the best employees ever. And that's the hard truth. So you're absolutely right. You can be laid off, fired at any time. Yeah. But if you're doing your own thing, in some ways you have more control over your destiny. And every hour you put in, every effort you put in, you're directly benefiting out of it. So it's rewarding in a lot of more ways.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're more in control of your own destiny. Although when you have employees, you're still having those same discussions a lot of times.
I know.
Which is unfortunate, right? Like, I mean, and this is actually one of those skills that I feel like is very important for entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that have teams, to really think about and understand how do they get there. So let's talk about how you started this then. So you had a full-time, well-paying gig at a big company, and then you decided to eject. So, how did you make that move? How did you decide to make that move?
So corporate life was slowly picking away at my soul. And for a while, I had been thinking of buying a business and just running a business or franchise. And my husband kept saying, well, why don't you do your own thing? Why don't you start your own agency? And his comment was always like, why don't you bet on yourself? If you're willing to bet on someone else's business and run and grow that, he's like, my money would go on you, right? Let's bet on yourself. So it was in my mind in the works for about 2 years. And after a couple of more experiences in corporate, I thought, you know what, this is just not worthwhile. And I had a strategy on paper. I had a website content that was ready to pull a trigger on. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. Talk to my bosses, talk to my employers, make sure they knew that I was gonna have an exit date. And I exited and started my own thing. That was a bold move.
How much time, when you told them that you were going to exit, how much time did you give them that said like, okay, this is the date I'm leaving at?
So a lot of moves are going on, and it was a 3 month thing. So I knew, okay, with 3 months, I can work myself up the courage to get this done on my own. And the worst case scenario, I thought I can go find another job, right? Something that's more suitable. And this actually worked out the best.
Yeah. And that comment right there is something that I've said a lot of times is like, what is the worst case scenario if you fail as an entrepreneur? Is you've got more skills now at this point. You can go get another job. Not saying that it'll be easy to go find another job, but it's not like you're going to be jobless for the rest of your life. Like somebody is going to want to pick you up.
And one of the things that I was afraid of was success. I was very successful, right? I knew how much I was bringing in for the business. I knew how much I was managing, how many people, what the budget was, and I knew what goals I needed to hit to be successful. And I talked to my husband, I'm like, well, what if I'm not successful at this? And his feedback was, well, let's define success. He's like, building a business is hard. And if you can get a client for $100, let's say that's successful and just work towards that. And then just continue to like moving back the goalpost and you'll be okay. And that kind of gave me the confidence to say, okay, so what if I'm not managing a $17 million budget, right? If I can get 2, 3, 4 clients, that's pretty good. Who's to say that's bad?
Right, right. Was there anything else that made you nervous in terms of starting this? Like the success side of it, I think all of us that have started any businesses feel that, but was there anything else?
Well, honestly, I was a little bit, I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but shy over the idea of that mom or Joselyne, this high-powered corporate person that's always traveling and leaving for the office in the morning. That's not her life anymore. I was a little bit embarrassed of what that would look like to my kids, to my parents, to, my circle where, oh, you're not traveling anymore. You're not in this meeting. You're not as busy as you've always been. Like the perception is what I was a little bit taken aback, out of nervous about what are people going to think if our lifestyle changes.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. How did you get over that for yourself?
So I had to get over it. The first thing I did is I started correcting or being over explaining what I did. So, if my mom called me in the middle of the day, I would never pick up before because I was always in meetings, and now I can pick up. And she's like, oh, well, now you're semi-retired. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm more in control of how I manage my day, right? So I'll hang up with you now and work later tonight, or I already did what I had to do this morning. So I started taking control of the outward narrative, and that really helped. Because even hearing myself defend what I was doing or show up in a different way helped with my psychology.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So let's talk about kind of the balance then of life and balancing stress and the demands of having a business and family life. Like now, yeah, you can pick up the phone when mom calls, but these things tend to then bleed over, right? Like then you have to work into the evening or work on the weekends. Like how do you balance that for yourself?
Yeah, so I think that's the benefit of doing your own thing, is because you can balance those hours. So for me, priority is my kids. Once they get out of school, I want to be at Taekwondo. I want to be at soccer practice. I actually enjoy watching soccer practice and the games. But then I know that at night when they're doing homework, I'm sitting right next to them and barely helping them with their homework because I'm working. Or I can work a little bit later, but I can also have flexibility with them in the morning. So to me, that success is being able to really manage and change your entire schedule around to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And if that means getting up on Sunday before church to get a few things done, well, but then I have the rest of Sunday and Monday left, right?
Right. Yeah. Interesting. What about exercise? Is that a routine for you? Do you make time for exercise?
I have to. It's a love-hate with exercise. So I've actually become an accidental runner. And during COVID days, I realized I was tired of being in my, enclosed office in one of the guest bedrooms. So I would start doing walk and talks, and I would do one-on-ones with my team members. And I would tell them, hey, I'm not in the camera. If you need me to be on the computer, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to walk the dog and you have my full attention, but I won't be sitting in front of the camera.
Right.
And so that 30 minutes happened. And when I wouldn't do my walk and talks, I would miss it. Next
Mm.
thing I know, I was finding excuses to go walk the dog. And then I'm like, well, I can, on the weekend, I'm like, I feel like I need to do something. So I'd go out and walk 2 miles or walk a mile. And next thing I know, I'm running 8 miles now. And so it was accidental, but I managed a way to incorporate it into my work and my productivity such that it had to happen. And now I love it.
Yeah. Do you do anything? So is that time for you running? Is it productive, or do you zone out? Do you go on meetings? Like some people, I don't know how you manage this, but they go on like running meetings. I think I would be so out of breath that I would not be able to actually have a productive meeting, but some people do it. Do you do anything like that?
So definitely not meetings anymore. The walk and talks were for the meetings, but now it's just listening to where I'm learning. Right, I'm listening to podcasts on AI, on how to get business loans, entrepreneurship. This podcast is what I've listened to often while running. The only problem I'm finding now, especially some AI ones that I listen to, I get some great ideas, great content, but I'm hitting like 8 minutes per mile, and I'm like, I can't take notes. So I try to like repeat what I want to say so I don't forget it. So I got to work through that challenge.
Yeah, that is that. There's probably some AI tool out there that'll help you with that.
I
I
bet there
imagine.
is. I got to find it.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of AI, let's talk about that a little bit. How has AI impacted your marketing strategy for yourself as well as for your clients?
Oh my God. AI has been an absolute dream come true. Especially when I opened the agency, I started off with just by myself. And it was hard to try to build a strategy for myself or a client when I didn't have that bouncing board. And AI has become my personal assistant. The way I like to describe it is that it is the person who's got the best education, who's learned experiences from a bajillion other people. And based on our conversations or chat, he or she, depending on what you call your AI person, mine for now is Doug. So Doug goes into his memory and says, hey, this won't work because here's some things why it won't work or it will work. And it's just a perfect bouncing board for me, for my strategies and also some of the stuff I deliver to my clients.
Yeah. Are there particular tools or platforms that you use and you've seen to be really effective in marketing?
Yeah. So ChatGPT and Claude, most people know about, but one of my secret ones that I am obsessed with is called Beautiful.ai. And what Beautiful does, it's built a PowerPoint presentation and incorporates, with the exception of Amazon, if you're not building PowerPoints, you're not really talking to people. It's hard to deliver a message without good visuals. And Beautiful AI does that. It is genius in how savvy it is, and the quality is really good.
Huh. Interesting. That's a great tip. So on the flip side of it, I think we've seen so many people use AI poorly and the garbage that sometimes will come out of it. So what kind of challenges have you encountered in trying to kind of integrate AI into your marketing workflow?
Yeah, and actually, when that's happened to me, it makes me feel better about the human connection and the human creativity and human intellect that a machine just can't possibly do. So I've had various systems that would give me some dashboards and data, give me trends on data. And when I try to spitball what can be the variables or the reason why there's a certain trend down, for instance, the information it gives me is completely wrong. It's false. It doesn't make sense. That's a whole different, industry, and it's just flat out wrong. But of course, AI doesn't know all the variables of this particular client, of this particular situation, of this particular industry. So of course it's wrong. So I think that's something that people need to know. You've got to take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not right 100% of the time.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any kind of trends that you're seeing or tools that you're seeing coming up around AI that really excite you for the future?
Yeah, I think agents are going to be much more popular. easier to manipulate. And I think eventually we'll see them in a lot of different places, and it's going to make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah. In terms of that, what do you mean by agents? So AI things that go out on their own and do things, or are you meaning something else?
Basically that go out on their own and do things. So a simple way of describing it would be like chatbots for customer service, right? When you have a question, they're like, "Oh, which one of these three is your question, right? Is it on finance, billing, or email?" And then you pick a button, and then it gives you more information. But
Right.
with agents, that'll be like much more advanced. You'll almost be talking to a person, and with the right information, they'll have your information. Be like, "Hey, Jay, last time you were here, you complained about this. Did you solve that problem? Right? Have you looked at this?" So it'll be much more personalized and interactive.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It is a fascinating world with all of this AI stuff. We'll see where we get to. But leveraging it the way that you've done is, I think, super, super smart. Has it impacted your team in any way? So you've got team members right now. Are you seeing that AI is going to reduce the amount of people that you need, or change the type of, like, how do you think it's going to impact your employment plans?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll make our work a lot more efficient and of better quality. So right now when you hire, let's say for instance, a project manager or a project coordinator, they might be really good at the detail, organizing, knowing where things are, but they might be horrible at presenting the information or building a quick dashboard on quick wins over the last 2 weeks and where we're going in the next 2 weeks. But with that AI, that project coordinator can still be really good at the basic stuff, but now they have the ability to build using beautiful AI, build a dashboard that gives us an amazing update, right? So now I have one person that can work quicker and do something that she wasn't good at before because she's got this system versus having to have two different people do that one task, or me coming in and rebuilding that presentation, for instance.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. You've been doing this now. How long have you had Dig? I don't think we talked about that.
Oh,
How
that's
long?
right. We haven't. It's only been a year and a half.
Okay,
So very new.
so very new. But even in a year and a half, you've probably learned a lot, and mistakes that have happened, and things are like, oh, I wish I could have done that different. Is there something that stands out to you that if you could go back and do differently that you would? And what is that and why?
Yes. So I would say that I am super happy that in year one, we did hit our goals, which was we were a six-figure in the agency in year one. And something I think I would have done a little bit different is be less shy about what I'm doing and talking about it, because I realized as I was talking to people about it, they were um, eager to join and work with me. They're like, "Oh my God, I've seen you do this kind of work. Yes, can you help me with this and that?" So at first I was a little bit shy about it.
Yeah.
And when I stopped being shy, I started seeing a lot more wins.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Is there, we've talked about these AI tools. Now I'm looking for, like, maybe a piece of advice from you for our listeners. Is there, like, one thing that you'd say, anybody that's listening that wants to up their marketing game, like, look, if there's only one thing you can do, like, do this one thing. What is that one thing? Is it a tool they should use, or is it an approach they should use? What is that one thing that stands out to you?
Oh, that's a big one. That's an easy one. So I'll answer it in two different ways. The first way is the one thing you should use as a marketer, usually in meetings, receiving direction, receiving requests from clients. You should not be taking notes at all. You should have an AI tool that's taking a transcript. Please make sure you have the transcript of it, and then gives you the summary, the notes, the actions at the end of the meeting, and can even email them to you before you can clean it up and send it out to other people. It can easily save you 30 minutes for every single meeting. Everyone should be doing that. The other way I'll answer that is there's so many different areas of marketing and everyone does a different type of marketing. I would say take a look at your list of your to-dos and your responsibilities. The stuff that you hate to do and you feel is tedious, I can almost promise you there's an AI tool for that. So ask ChatGPT, and I thought, hey, I don't like this task. How can I automate it? And then find ways to make your life a little bit better by automating things you don't want to do or don't like to do.
Oh, that is great insight. On the note taking, is there a particular tool that you use that you absolutely love?
Yes. So I love Crisp, KRISP, and I like it because it has noise cancellation. So during COVID, you would have lawnmowers, my dog, cars coming in, the truck drivers up. It was just a hot mess. And with Crisp, it is all gone. I could have had a baby, kid crying right next to me, and you would not be able to hear it. at a minimum, you've got to see their YouTube ad. It's so funny and so real. And it works really well. Then it has the transcripts and all that fun stuff.
So I didn't realize they had added transcripts and all that. I saw them during COVID because they blew up during that time for that exact reason. And for doing the audio cleanup in real time. But I didn't realize that they'd added the note taking and all that on top of it.
Yeah. So it's a fun feature and it's pretty economical as well. So for small businesses, it's an easy one. You can probably do the free version, then you'll get enough out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Last kind of question for you here. Of course, unless you say something that makes me think of another question. What would you say to somebody that you're talking to that's thinking about, going all in like you did and starting a full-time business, quitting their job? What advice would you give them?
So I would tell them two things. One is build a safety net. Like in your mind, just assume you're not going to make a dime in the first 6 to 9 months, right? And just build a safety net so that you can really focus on the business. And then the other thing I would say is actually just go do it. Build that safety net and redefine success. Like for me, redefining success was if I can get one client for $100, that's okay. And that kind of gave me the permission to just go try it. And I thought, if I talk to 100 people and 99 say no, but if one says yes, I'm succeeding. And that kind of gave me the motivation to go and do that. So those would be my two things. Build a safety net so that you can really focus on it. And then redefine success and go do it and get that goal.
Fantastic. Last thing, where can our listeners find and connect with you online?
So they can find me at the diggagency.com. And if you're watching, it's a logo on my shirt. It is DIGG agency.com. And that's the best way to find me. And you'll have all my information on there to connect with me directly.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. And to hear more Side Hustle to Small Business stories or share your own story, visit hiscox.com/side hustle to small business. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find more about me at my website, sanjayparekh.com.